did say this. Here's a story that you probably haven't heard about P. Diddy.
Last few months, the biggest being the United States government and its new criminal investigation against him. But his biggest enemy came in May of 2023 when he filed a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against the alcoholic beverage company Diageo. Why would Puff file a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against them? He claimed that they were engaging in racist practices. Before we get into the weeds of this lawsuit, let's talk about the company first. Diageo is the world's largest premium alcoholic beverage company with a net worth of $74 billion, making it the 254th most valuable company on the planet. Some of the key shareholders, Vanguard and BlackRock. And in 2023, Warren Buffett, the snowball, opened his wallet and spent $42 million on Diageo stock, which is currently selling for $136 a share on the Nisi stock index. Beyond Ciroc, which connects it to Puff, what other liquor brands do they own? Johnny Walker, Smirnoff, Bailey's, Captain Morgan, to name a few. And in 2017, they purchased Don Julio and gave George Clooney $1 billion to purchase Casamigos. Those last two is where Puff has an issue. In 2007, Diageo was losing $40 million a year on a brand they had called Ciroc. So they contact Puff because they seen that he had a major influence in the lifestyle world. So Puffy signs on to promote Ciroc. Now the deal was he would just get a sponsorship fee for promoting the brand. He didn't have any ownership in it. Sort of like the influencer deals that you would see here, where a company will contact the influencer and pay them a flat fee to promote a product. Same thing, way more money. Puffy sets out on this unprecedented advertising campaign, turns it completely around and makes Ciroc a household name and one of the most popular vodkas in the world. But he has no ownership in it. This leads to the flavored Ciroc variants: peach, apple, coconut. They don't give him any ownership in the unflavored Ciroc, but what they do tell him is you can get X amount of dollars off each case of flavored Ciroc that's shipped. Diddy started to heavily promote flavored Ciroc bottles and why he was doing that. What Diageo didn't see coming is having to pay him $60 million a year off that deal. Here's the important part. Before Diageo started their partnership with Diddy, they were shipping 40,000 cases of Ciroc a year. 10 years later, with Puff being the face of Ciroc and promoting it, they were shipping 2.6 million cases. Keep in mind, Puffy is a boss, not an influencer. During this time, Puff started to see that tequila was becoming the popular drink that people wanted. So Puff buys the tequila brand De Leon. And Diageo, the company that he has made billions, is the distributor of it. Unbeknownst to Puff, they had also went and bought Don Julio and Casamigos from George Clooney. Neither company had made them a dime in the past 10 years. And then what Diageo did really pissed off Puff. First, we got to talk about supply and demand. If a company controls your supply and demand, they can determine your financial future. If they only make a small supply of your product and ship it to a small number of locations where people can buy it, you're only going to have a few buyers. Diddy owned 50% of De Leon and Diageo owned the other 50%, and Diageo was responsible for supply and distribution. Unlike Ciroc, where Diddy didn't have any ownership, he owned 50% of De Leon. What does that mean? Out of the billions of dollars that Puffy had made selling Ciroc, they only had to give him a few $100 million. They made over $70 billion. But because Puff owned half of De Leon, they were going to have to split those billions with him. They resented paying Puff the few $100 million for Ciroc. Now it was looking like they was going to have to split the billions with him down the middle. Remember, he took Ciroc from shipping 40,000 cases a year to 2.6 million. Even if he got close to doing for De Leon what he was doing for Ciroc, they were going to have to cut a huge check. De Leon launches and Puffy goes into full throttle salesman mode. Sort of like what he was doing for Ciroc, but on steroids. Sales start to come in and they are abysmal. Diageo only made a small amount of De Leon and only shipped it to certain locations. What locations you talking about, comrade? The urban landscape. and Diageo stopped signing off on advertising budgets. So Diddy decides to investigate with his own people the infrastructure that Diageo had created to play their role in the contract of making De Leon a success. This brings us to the agave plant. Agave plants are the primary ingredients in making tequila, and they are grown in Mexico. So Diddy decides to send his people to Mexico to see how many agave plants Diageo had planted for De Leon.
I had to send my people down to Mexico, and this is just to tell you what the fight is about. They went down to Mexico, and when they got down there, they found out that there was 0 agave planted for De Leon. So there was no plan for us to be successful. There was no equal treatment. The other brands, they had agave planted.
And most of the agave that was planted for Casamigos, whom Diageo had just gave George Clooney $1 billion. Puff is pissed, and he files his lawsuit citing discrimination and breach of contract. This is where it gets really interesting, but I want to recap the company that Diddy is going up against. Diageo is the 254th most valuable company on the planet, worth $74 billion. Its two main investors are BlackRock and Vanguard, two of the most powerful, richest companies on the planet. BlackRock and Vanguard together basically own the planet Earth. Pay close attention to this timeline. May of 2023, Puffy files his lawsuit. In June of 2003, Diageo gives a public response. They say that Diddy is trying to extract billions of dollars from the company, and his inflammatory rhetoric about racism is going to cast a bad shadow on the company. Then they file a motion citing a part of Puff contract that said that this issue should be handled in private arbitration. Basically, they were saying if it wasn't for the claims of racism, this was just a standard business disagreement. In September, the judge presiding over that case denied that motion and set it for trial and made the trial open to the public. Remember, this is September. 1 month later, Cassie files her lawsuit, and the snowball that is currently the trials of Diddy started. Cassie files her lawsuit November 2003. January 2004, Puffy's lawsuit with Diageo gets resolved, and they release a joint statement. Sean Combs and Diageo no longer have any business dealings. And guess what Diageo also got in this settlement? Full ownership of De Leon. All y'all seem to care about is freak-offs and baby oil. P. Diddy has garnered a lot of enemies over the past few months, the biggest being the United States government and its new criminal investigation against him. But his biggest enemy came in May of 2023, when he filed a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against the alcoholic beverage company Diageo. Why would Puff file a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against them? He claimed that they were engaging in racist practices. Before we get into the weeds of this lawsuit, let's talk about the company first. Diageo is the world's largest premium
They called the accusations offensively false and said they planned to seek penalties against the lawyer who filed them. In a motion to dismiss the claims against UMG and Grange, the label's attorneys blasted Tyrone Blackburn for making knowingly false allegations of criminal behavior without any factual or legal basis. They argued the complaint accuses UMG and Grange of criminal racketeering and sex trafficking, even though neither had anything to do with the plaintiff's claims. UMG's lawyers didn't just take issue with the original claims, they also slammed Blackburn for filing an updated complaint this week, which they say completely changed the allegations. One of UMG's attorneys, Zachary, was particularly harsh, saying, "In all my time, I've never seen an attorney show the level of indifference Mr. Blackburn has."
Excuse me, where is your hot sauce bar?
We don't have one.
Firehouse Subs has one.
Sir.
All my time, I've never seen an attorney show the level of indifference Mr. Blackburn has towards his responsibility. Zachary went on to say, "I've never seen a lawyer accuse people and companies of criminal conduct without any basis, then file an amended complaint that drops all the original claims and replaces them with entirely different and conflicting ones while still trying to support the same accusations. Blackburn fired back, calling UMG's motion a public relations stunt filed in bad faith. He added, they had no problem aligning themselves with Mr. Combs when it was trending, but now they're acting like he's got the play. Former federal prosecutor Niyama Rahmani drew some parallels between Diddy's case and Epstein's, suggesting that, unlike R. Kelly's crimes, which didn't involve many wealthy or famous people, Diddy's case might. She believes, like Epstein, Diddy could be connected to high-profile figures who might also face legal trouble. Rahmani has cautioned that anyone who participated in these alleged acts with Diddy should be worried, as they could be facing criminal charges too. For the defense, there's a tough road ahead. First off, they'll need to find a jury that claims to be fair and impartial. That's challenging because many people believe if you're charged, you must be guilty, which isn't how the system works. Everyone's presumed innocent until the government proves otherwise. Then, there's the media coverage. This case is all over the news, and there's always the concern that potential jurors will read about it and form opinions before even hearing the evidence in court. With the internet being such a mixed bag of accuracy, that's a real concern. The sheer amount of evidence could also pose problems. Prosecutors claim there could be up to 50 witnesses and victims, plus video and physical evidence collected from Diddy's homes. If it all lines up, that's a strong case. But the prosecution isn't without its own challenges. They have to convince all 12 jurors that Diddy is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt on every charge, and they're going up against a famous defendant, which makes this a highly scrutinized trial. Diddy's fame and resources could play in his favor, though. With access to top lawyers and investigators, he can mount a solid defense and find ways to challenge the government's case. Witnesses might even feel intimidated facing someone as powerful as Diddy in court. But despite all this, Rahmani believes fame might not be as much of an advantage for Diddy in this case as it seems. Most prosecutors also think it won't help him as much as people might expect. Rebecca Donaleski, a former federal prosecutor who played a key role in the successful prosecution of Maxwell, weighed in on the raid at Combs' homes, describing it as an aggressive move that suggests there are victims willing to cooperate. Sean Combs and his associates are accused of doing the same terrible things that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell did. They're said to have broken the law by trafficking people and forcing young girls to do things they didn't want to. It's possible that Combs and his people might have even done worse things than Epstein and Maxwell did. Family members. Recently, a reporter named Tom Bryant, who got a first-hand look at one of Diddy's alleged freak-offs, shared some shocking claims. He reported that Diddy made Kim Porter watch X-rated scenes involving him and sex workers. It was around 4 a.m. in a bustling Parisian nightclub back in 2007. The music was pumping, and Tom found himself surrounded by a sea of scantily clad women dancing wildly in a cramped VIP room overflowing with women personally selected by Diddy's crew, some from the club and others brought over from a previous event. Tom was sipping on glass after glass of the finest champagne. Things took a strange turn when a straight foot unexpectedly brushed against his face. He watched as a woman, barefoot and lifted by two hefty security guards, was dropped right next to Diddy, where she started dancing energetically beside him. What stuck with him the most was seeing Kim, who has since passed away, sitting calmly by Diddy's side, seemingly unfazed by the explicit scene happening around her. With her unfazed, she definitely had seen stuff. No wonder her book Kim's Lost Diary, which was leaked by her friends, had a lot of things on Diddy. The book describes alleged philandering with both male and female top musicians and rappers and orgies at his home, in which Porter took part. The memoir also has accounts of Diddy allegedly abusing Porter and even making death threats towards her. In the book, Porter recounts discovering and making copies of tapes Diddy made of himself having a moment with young boys he was managing, including an alleged tape involving an 18-year-old pop star who went on to be a household name. Porter's alleged final entry sees Porter falling ill, texting her friends saying, "He got me," and then calling the emergency number 911. The phrase, "he got me," is one of the reasons many people are pushing for the FBI to reopen the investigation into Kim Porter's death. Her sudden passing shocked everyone. She was a seemingly healthy 47-year-old who died from pneumonia on November 15, 2018, after showing flu-like symptoms just days before. Some folks, including Donald Trump's eldest son, are skeptical about that diagnosis. Kim had a complicated on and off relationship with Combs, 54, that lasted from around 1994 until their breakup in 2007. They had 3 kids together. Their son, Christian King Combs, who's now 26, and twin daughters, Delilah and Jessie, who were 17. Kim rarely discussed her relationship with Combs, especially since she discovered he was expecting a child with another woman, Sarah Chapman, while she was having twins. Still, she claimed to remain friends with him after they split. However, wild theories about her time with Combs started gaining traction in April, especially after comments from Donald Trump Jr. They hit a fever pitch when a book was released just days before Combs' arrest, featuring what Porter's friends described as her troubling diary entries. On On the Academics podcast, Don Jr. claimed that Porter was afraid of Diddy and expressed doubts that she actually died from pneumonia. He shared this perspective based on conversations with his ex-wife, Vanessa Trump, who was close friends with Porter. When Kim passed, Vanessa reached out to Don Jr. and said, "Something is up with that." The book, titled Kim's Lost Words, published shortly before Combs' arrest, alleges that he first hit Porter when she refused to use a strap-on during intimate moments. It portrays him as a terrifying monster, claiming he once threatened her with a gun in her apartment. Much of the book focuses on their sex life, suggesting that the couple had an open relationship. Bonds, who was part of Combs' security team for nearly a decade between 2003 and 2012, recently spoke with Piers Morgan about his experiences, claiming that Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassandra Cassie Ventura, was one of the many people manipulated by the Bad Boy Records founder. He made it clear that Ventura, who filed a lawsuit against Combs last November alleging assault, wasn't the only woman to face physical.
It's really extraordinary being surrounded by such scale.
We'll do the first season justice, I hope. It's good to be back in.
Against Combs last November alleging assault wasn't the only woman to face physical violence at his hands. According to Bonds, the late model and actress Kim Porter also endured violent attacks from Combs. Bonds recounted witnessing Combs smack and grab Porter during their relationship. Combs and Porter, who were romantically involved from 1994 to 2007 and shared 3 children, had a tumultuous history. In one incident, which was highlighted in Porter's lawsuit that has since been settled, Combs was seen chasing her, grabbing her, kicking her, and even throwing a glass vase at her. Over the weekend, Combs issued an apology for his actions in the video, but critics like Bonds were skeptical about his sincerity. Bonds feels he said what people wanted to hear, not what he really felt. He also described several alleged incidents of violence that Combs directed toward the women close to him, including one encounter with Porter in front of the Beverly Hills Hotel. Although he didn't specify when it occurred, he recalled that the former couple was fighting in a car. Afterward, Kim got out like nothing happened, fixed her hair, and warned him not to touch her again. There was a very important moment Jones pointed out in his lawsuit against Diddy. You see, on or around September 12, 2022, Mr. Combs hosted a writers and producers camp at Chalice Recording Studio in Los Angeles. Among those present were Mr. Combs, his son Justin, and Justin's friend G, a tall 30-year-old African-American male. There were also other musicians attending the camp, and I've spoken to several of them about what happened that night. One evening, Mr. Combs, Justin, and G got into a heated discussion, which eventually moved from the studio into an adjacent restroom. Meanwhile, a man named Mr. Jones was sitting just about 2 feet away from the bathroom. Suddenly, he heard multiple gunshots ringing out, sending him into a state of shock as he feared he would be shot next. The proximity of the gunfire made him genuinely believe that bullets could come through the door at any moment. Once the shooting stopped, a crowd gathered outside the restroom. When the door finally swung open, Mr. Combs and Justin stepped out, but G was lying on the restroom floor in a fetal position, clutching his stomach and bleeding heavily from his leg and hip area. Frustrated by the lack of immediate help, Mr. Jones dropped everything and rushed to G, applying pressure to the gunshot wound in his stomach. As he pressed down on G's wound, Mr. Jones noticed that blood was gushing from another area near G's leg. Without hesitating, he lifted G and helped him sit on the toilet, urging the crowd to call for an ambulance. Mr. Jones then carried G to the ambulance waiting at the front of the studio, while Mr. Combs and Justin disappeared into another part of the building. Before they left, Mr. Combs gave strict instructions to inform the police that he had nothing to do with the shooting. He also pressured Mr. Jones to lie to the authorities, insisting they say G was shot while standing outside the studio by a drive-by assailant. Mr. Jones still has the clothes he wore that day, and he believes they may still have stains and DNA from G's blood. Here is the aftermath of the shooting. According to Jones, it was obvious that G was not shot outside the studio, despite Mr. Combs instructing his team to tell law enforcement otherwise. On Tuesday, September 17th, Combs was remanded to the Metropolitan Detention Center, MDC, after pleading not guilty and having his bail denied twice that week. It's unclear if he's feeling suicidal or how long he's been on suicide watch, but sources claim that he's in shock and his mental state is pretty uncertain. During a court hearing, his attorney, Mark Agnifilo, requested that the music mogul be moved to a prison in Essex County, New Jersey. However, the final decision is in the hands of the Bureau of Prisons. The MDC, which holds around 1,600 inmates, many awaiting trial, is notorious for being dangerous and understaffed, with a troubling record of deaths and suicides. In their motion for Combs to be granted bail, his attorneys pointed out that several courts in this district have recognized that the conditions at Metropolitan Detention Center are not fit for pretrial detention. Just this summer, there was a murder of an inmate, and in the past 3 years, at least 4 inmates have taken their own lives there. Wow, what a tough time for Diddy. In any case, we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Looks like you enjoyed it. Why not check out these other videos on your screen? See if you might like them too. In a shocking turn of events, Secret Service files have been leaked, revealing a list that no one expected, a list of famous rappers linked to none other than Diddy himself. This isn't just a rumor, it's official. How far does this go? Which of your favorite rappers made the cut? Grab your popcorn, because things are about to get wild. Get ready for the jaw-dropping truth. Diddy, a man's man. Music mogul. Sean Diddy Combs has long been a central figure in the entertainment industry, both for his significant contributions to music and for the controversies surrounding his personal life. In recent years, allegations have surfaced suggesting Diddy's involvement in sexual relationships with various male celebrities, including prominent rappers and artists. One of the most shocking accusations came from his former producer, Rodney Lil Rod Jones, who filed a lawsuit against Diddy in 2024. According to Jones, Diddy pressured him, along with other artists, into engaging in sexual acts in exchange for professional rewards. Lil Rod's talked the disturbing account of the sexual harassment and manipulation he allegedly endured while working on Diddy's album, The Love Album, Off the Grid. Jones claimed that during his 13-month stay at Diddy's residence, he was subjected to non-consensual groping of his anus and crotch and was forced into engaging in sexual acts. He also claimed that Diddy promised him a Grammy Award for Producer of the Year if he agreed to participate in homosexual activities. Lil Rod claimed that Diddy took advantage of his admiration for Grammy Award-winning music producer Stephen Aaron Jordan, also known as Stevie J, by showing him footage of the music producer having gay sex with a Caucasian male without a condom as a way to manipulate him into having sex with him. Lil Rod recounted Diddy telling him that this is a normal practice in the music industry. Look, even Stevie J is doing it. According to the Lil Rod's account, he was forced to watch Diddy taking showers through his glass door bathroom and was given drinks that had been heavily laced with cocaine and other hard drugs to make him lose his willpower not to have gay sex. Lil Rod, who describes himself as a heterosexual Christian man, said he was uncomfortable with Mr. Combs' advances and complained to Diddy's chief of staff, Christina Coram, who dismissed him saying, Sean will be Sean. Ms. Coram downplayed the constant groping of his anus as Diddy's way of showing that he likes you. To make his advances more enticing, Lil Rod said Diddy promised to make him a Grammy winner in the Producer of the Year category as long as he slept with him. Diddy, according to Lil Rod, also disclosed that he had had sex with a male rapper. Mr. Combs informed Mr. Jones that he had engaged in sexual intercourse with rapper 5, redacted, R&B singer 6, redacted, and Stevie J. The lawsuit described rapper 5, whose name was redacted, as Philadelphia bred and a former boyfriend to veteran rapper Nicki Minaj, and so far, only one person fits the description. Robert Rymeek Williams, also known as Meek Mill, hails from Philadelphia and dated Nicki between 2014 and 2016. He has had 2 of his albums nominated for a Grammy, though he hasn't won any. This isn't the first time Diddy has been at the center of rumors involving questionable relationships with younger male artists. During a live stream with Kevin Hart, he once admitted to sleeping with Usher, but quickly backtracked. Rumors of him and YK Osiris circulated, with people calling YK Diddy's boy toy. From his mentorship of Usher at the age of 14 to his interactions with Justin Bieber and YK Osiris, speculations have emerged about Diddy's influence and the potential exploitation of young talent in exchange for career advancement. Such rumors have persisted, amplified by other figures in the music industry like 50 Cent, who has been vocal about Diddy's suspicious behavior at private parties. These ongoing allegations point to a potentially troubling pattern within the industry, where fame and success may come at a personal cost for those under Diddy's influence. Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, claimed to have witnessed an unforgettable encounter between Diddy and Ja Rule, suggesting that there was a possible gay encounter. This news at the time shocked everyone, though Lil Rod has come out with all of these evidence to back up his claims. Diddy's lawyer, Sean Holley, still thinks Lil Rod is a liar that is shamelessly looking for an undeserved payday. In an interview with Rolling Stone, Holley said, his reckless name-dropping about events that are pure fiction and simply did not happen is nothing more than a transparent attempt to garner headlines. We have overwhelming, indisputable proof that his claims are complete lies. Lil Rod was just an upcoming artist trying to navigate his way in the entertainment industry. He had been around long enough to witness how some young, hopeful artists were being lured into bad deals, signing contracts that, in the long run, robbed them of their creative and financial freedom. He had experienced some of these pressures himself, but had managed to maintain his independence. However, the more he saw, the more he realized how deep the problem is. That's where Diddy, a larger-than-life figure in the music world, enters the story. Diddy, also known as Sean Combs, had built an empire with Bad Boy Boy Records. He had a reputation for spotting talent and turning artists into household names. So when Lil Rod met Diddy in 2015 at an industry event, things could have gone either way. Diddy was impressed by Lil Rod's talent and the buzz he had created, so he offered him a spot on the Bad Boy Records roster. Initially, Lil Rod had accepted to work with Diddy, but it was only after seeing what went on behind the scenes that he decided he had to leave. It wasn't long after declining Diddy that Lil Rod started noticing things going sideways for his career. All of a sudden, he was being blacklisted from major music platforms and radio stations. It felt like an invisible hand was working against him, making it harder for him to push his music. But Lil Rod didn't give up. He kept releasing music, kept reaching out to his fans, and stayed true to himself. Now, fast forward to the moment when Lil Rod decided to speak out about Diddy. This wasn't a decision he made lightly. Diddy was one of the most powerful men in the music business, and going up against him meant risking everything. But Lil Rod was determined. He wanted to expose what he believed to be the ugly truth behind Diddy's empire. In a series of interviews and social media posts, Lil Rod dropped some heavy accusations against Diddy. One of the biggest bombshells, Lil Rod claimed that Diddy had been exploiting young artists for years by trapping them in unfair contracts. These contracts, according to Lil Rod, were designed to benefit Diddy and Bad Boy Records while leaving the artists with little control over their music, careers, or finances. It wasn't just hearsay either. Lil Rod had proof. He came forward with copies of contracts from other artists, showing just how one-sided these deals were. Diddy was allegedly taking a huge cut of their royalties, and many of these agreements were long-term, making it hard for artists to break free. But that wasn't all. Lil Rod also accused Diddy of creating feuds between artists to drum up publicity. He pointed to the infamous East Coast-West Coast rivalry of the 90s, suggesting that Diddy played a role in fanning the flames of that conflict to boost record sales. On top of all this, Lil Rod claimed that Diddy had been actively involved in the death of a man nicknamed G, who was rumored to have been killed in a hit and run. According to Lil Rod, G was a friend of Diddy's son, Justin Combs, and they had both been present at the Chalice recording studio on the 12th of September 2022, when G and Justin got into a heated argument which ended in Diddy and his son pulling G into a bathroom and shooting him to death. Lil Rod claimed to still have the clothes that were stained with G's blood from trying to save him that day as proof of this allegation. One of his accounts stated that on Thanksgiving Day in 2022, Diddy had sent Young Miami's cousin to assault him. He recounted how she forced herself on him while he was using the bathroom and tried to have oral sex on his exposed penis. He declined her advances by walking away, and she followed him while undressing herself, and then she attempted to straddle him and have sex with him in the presence of Diddy and his staff. He also
Since starting the farmer's dog, Booger has lost so much weight, and he has so much more energy.
straddle him and have sex with him in the presence of Diddy and his staff. He also recalled waking up naked on the 3rd of February 2023, feeling very dizzy and confused like someone who had been drugged, only to find himself in bed with two workers and Diddy. He recalled walking around the house naked, not knowing where he was. He took a bold step by filing his 70-page lawsuit at the Federal District Court in Manhattan against Mr. Combs, detailing the allegations of sexual assault, drug dealing, hiring workers, and participating in various sexual activities, all of which he was forced to endure while living with Mr. Combs to work on his album. In the statement, he accused Diddy of running an underground criminal organization, which, if proven true, could not only ruin Diddy's reputation, but also lead to jail time. The accusations were extreme. Jones also claimed he had undeniable proof of Diddy being involved in buying, using, and distributing illegal drugs like ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and mushrooms. When Lil Rod's allegations went public, the reaction was intense. Fans took to social media in droves to show their support. Hashtags like #JusticeForLilRod and #ExposeDiddy started trending, and many people praised Lil Rod for his courage. They felt like he was finally pulling back the curtain on the dark side of the music industry, a side that often goes unseen by the public. Of course, not everyone was on Lil Rod's side. Some industry veterans and longtime fans of Diddy defended him, saying that Diddy had always been a mentor and had helped shape the careers of many successful artists. Diddy's camp quickly issued a statement denying all of the accusations and saying that he had always worked to support his artists, not exploit them. The backlash didn't stop Lil Rod, though. He kept pushing forward, and as more artists started speaking out, the conversation around power dynamics in the music industry grew louder. After Lil Rod's allegations against Diddy, things only got more intense. What had started as accusations of shady business dealings soon opened the door to even darker revelations about Diddy's lifestyle. Now the focus shifted to a whole different side of Diddy's life, his infamous freak-off parties. These events weren't just lavish gatherings for the rich and famous. They were rumored to be the epicenter of wild, drug-fueled parties with shocking sexual acts that have left many speechless. Diddy, known for his larger-than-life persona, was no stranger to throwing extravagant parties. From exclusive mansions in the Hamptons to high-end hotels, Diddy's events always attracted top-tier celebrities and industry insiders. But while his public parties were legendary, full of A-list guests and paparazzi, there were whispers of much wilder, secretive gatherings happening behind closed doors, events that would later be referred to as freak-off parties. Unlike the glamorous, open-to-the-public parties like the White Party Diddy was known for, these freak-off events were private, invitation-only affairs. Guests were chosen carefully, and what went on inside was kept under tight wraps. But over time, rumors began to surface, and first-hand accounts started leaking out. These weren't your typical Hollywood bashes. According to multiple reports, the freak-off parties were centered around heavy drug use and shocking sexual activities that crossed serious moral and legal boundaries. Rachel Kennedy, a former topless dancer who encountered Diddy in Tokyo during the early 2000s, was one of the first to give a clear picture of what these gatherings were like. She recalled being invited back to Diddy's hotel after meeting him at a strip club. What she and her friends expected to be a regular party turned out to be far from ordinary. Kennedy described scenes where drugs flowed freely, and things quickly escalated into what she described as wild sexual performances. According to reports, many women and men were brought in against their will, drugged and forced to perform naked for Diddy's guests. Most times, they would get taken into private chambers by the guests and while they were being recorded. Lil Rod claimed that Diddy kept these footage to use as blackmail against anyone who ever tried to expose him in his activities. 50 Cent, in a recount on the last time he got invited to a freak-off party, talked about how he felt uncomfortable walking into the place. He said there was no respect for boundaries and everyone was touching each other in ways that they shouldn't. Many other people also came forward to talk about how wild these parties were, talking about the abundance of drugs and sex toys that were present. As the revelations about Diddy's secretive freak-off parties came to light, the scandal surrounding him only deepened. But the fallout didn't stop there. It quickly spiraled into a series of accusations that led to the music mogul's arrest and eventual incarceration. Diddy goes to jail. It all started with a lawsuit in late 2023 when Cassie Ventura, Diddy's ex-girlfriend, came forward with shocking claims of abuse. Her civil lawsuit, filed under New York's Adult Survivors Act, set off a chain reaction that opened the floodgates for more allegations. Several other women, including Joy Dickerson-Neal and Liza Gardner, followed Cassie's lead, each bringing their own painful stories to light, accusing Diddy of sexual abuse, manipulation, and exploitation. It wasn't long before these claims caught the attention of federal authorities. In early 2024, federal agents executed raids on Diddy's properties in Los Angeles and Miami. The investigation had escalated significantly, leading to the seizure of firearms and other evidence that hinted at much deeper criminal activities. What shocked many was that Diddy wasn't just facing allegations of abuse, but accusations of organized crime-like behavior. He was linked to racketeering, kidnapping, trafficking, and even drug distribution. It seemed like every corner of Diddy's empire had been stained with illegal activity. By March 2024, Diddy's legal troubles reached a new level. After being
At Visprint, we print signs so people can see your brand up close. But we also print signs so that people can see your business here. See it here.
24, Diddy's legal troubles reached a new level. After being stopped at a Miami Opa-locka airport en route to the Bahamas, Diddy and his crew were raided by the federal investigations. The authorities seized his cell phones as part of their evidence-gathering process, signaling the seriousness of the charges he was facing. One of the key figures arrested during the raid was Brendan Paul, an associate of Diddy's. Paul was caught with suspected cocaine and marijuana and was accused of helping Diddy acquire and distribute drugs. Footage of Diddy getting tensed after the arrest was released to the internet, showing how deeply this arrest had affected him and his business. Other influential figures named in the case included Stevie J, a former music producer, and Diddy's head of security, Fahim Muhammad, who was Michael Jackson's head of security before he died. These individuals were said to have played key roles in Diddy's operations, either helping cover up his crimes or facilitating his misconduct. Even his chief of staff, Christina Coram, responsible for running his day-to-day operations, was linked to the illegal activity. Another raid was carried out in his place of residence in the second week of September 2024, and the feds found over 1,000 bottles of baby oil lube, 740 dildos, 3 AR-15 rifles, various drugs, among other things. These items were confiscated, and a warrant was put out to arraign Diddy and bring him in. In September 2024, Diddy was finally arrested at the Park Hyatt Hotel and was indicted on federal racketeering charges. This wasn't just about individual cases of abuse. He was now being accused of using his business and influence to run an extensive criminal operation, from forcing victims into degrading freak-offs to engaging in bribery and covering up his actions through intimidation. The indictment painted Diddy as someone who used his power to exploit others for personal gain. If convicted, he faces the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison. Diddy's legal team, led by attorney Mark Agnifilo, argued that these accusations were baseless, and Diddy maintained his innocence throughout. Despite these assertions, the evidence continued to pile up against him. Diddy's downfall isn't just a personal tragedy, it has also implicated many others in the entertainment industry. Some of the biggest names in music and fashion, like his mentor Andre Harrell and music executives Clive Davis and Ethiopia Haptemariam, were linked to the scandal. Allegations surfaced that these influential figures may have shielded Diddy from legal consequences for years, protecting him while enabling his behavior. Even his close relationships with political figures like former President Bill Clinton were called into question, as people wondered just how far Diddy's influence stretched. Diddy versus R. Kelly. Diddy is currently facing charges that could potentially end his very successful career. The Southern District of New York has charged him with racketeering conspiracy, trafficking, and transportation for prostitution, invoking the same RICO Act used against R. Kelly. The RICO Act, originally designed to combat organized crime, is being used once again to prosecute a high-profile individual. In Diddy's case, prosecutors claim that he led an enterprise that engaged in a range of criminal activities, including trafficking, murder, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. This enterprise, much like Kelly's, allegedly used Diddy's fame and resources to manipulate and control those around him. The use of the RICO statute against Diddy follows the same legal framework as the case against R. Kelly. It allows prosecutors to frame Diddy not just as an individual committing crimes, but as the leader of an organized effort to facilitate and cover these crimes. This strategy widens up the scope of the prosecution and makes it easier to include a wide range of evidence and testimony. Diddy's empire is vast, encompassing record labels, a studio, a clothing line, a marketing agency, and a liquor business. According to the indictment, this enterprise had dual purposes: promoting Diddy and his business ventures and managing his alleged criminal activities. Prosecutors claim that Diddy used his employees, including security personnel, domestic staff, and personal assistants, to carry out and cover up these crimes. The indictment describes a decade-long pattern of abuse, threats, and coercion. Diddy allegedly used his power and influence to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and cover up his misconduct. Victims were reportedly paid off, manipulated with employment opportunities, and supplied with drugs to maintain their compliance. Members of his entourage witnessed acts of violence but chose to cover them up rather than intervene. One of the most disturbing incidents in Diddy's case involves his ex-girlfriend, Cassandra Cassie Ventura. In 2016, a video surfaced showing Combs attacking Ventura. Although the statute of limitations had expired, prosecutors included this incident as evidence to support the racketeering conspiracy charge. While there are striking similarities between the cases against Diddy and R. Kelly, there are also key differences. Kelly's victims included underage girls, making it impossible for them to consent to the sexual activities. In contrast, Diddy has not been charged with victimizing minors. His defense team argues that his alleged victims were willing participants, a distinction that could play an important role in the trial's outcome. The charges against Diddy are very serious and bear a close similarity to those made against Kelly. However, the question of consent could emerge as a key element of Diddy's defense. His attorneys will likely argue that the alleged victims were willing participants in consensual activities. Diddy's attorney claims the case centers on a single victim, while federal prosecutors insist there are multiple victims. The defense argues that consensual sex between adults is legal, as long as there is no force, fraud, or coercion. The only chance Diddy has of winning this case is if witnesses testify and jurors believe it was consensual. He's not going to argue that it didn't happen or that it was someone else. The defense will focus on proving that the activities were consensual and that there was no coercion involved. In comparison to Kelly's own case, his underage victims could not consent, making his defense much more challenging. The pinnacle of Diddy's defense will be that these were wild parties with willing participants engaged in drugs, and hip-hop. This distinction could be very crucial in the outcome of Diddy's trial. While we watch how Diddy's trial unfolds and what awaits him, let us take a look at how much impact these allegations against Diddy have had on his public image and future projects. The chance to just be looked at strictly in musical terms, and that being the defining part of his legacy, is pretty much gone. You can't look at Diddy's music in a vacuum the same way you did before. He's gone from this aspirational, go-getting music industry legend to essentially, arguably, the Bill Cosby of hip-hop. Diddy's indictment is seen by many as a continuation of a reckoning for the rap world. Sexual misconduct allegations have also been leveled at Russell Simmons and R&B singer R. Kelly, who is currently serving a 30-year prison sentence for using his fame to sexually abuse young fans in a systematic scheme that went on for decades. The severity of these allegations has led to a broader conversation about accountability and the culture within the hip-hop industry. It's always a question of, are fans going to separate the person from the art? Are you able to differentiate the good musical contributions decisions somebody has made versus what's going on in their personal life, the legal issues that they're facing. When it comes to Puff, I do think many fans will be able to differentiate the two. Despite the allegations, Diddy's music continues to be played around the world. However, the effects are felt elsewhere. His music is unlikely to be synced in TV shows, films, or commercials. Streaming platforms, on the other hand, may continue to profit quietly as long as people keep streaming his records and watching his music videos. Does MTV stop running those shows if they're running in syndication? No company that's making money off of something that they produce is going to willingly give up that money. I don't think anybody who's still committed to listening to Diddy's music.
Bill is a financial operations platform. Bill gives you real-time visibility into company expenses all in one place. Create budgets that's...
Why, this is going to be interesting, but now that's the beginning of the video is part of probably what sparked all this thing that's happened, and that just piled on to it, and everything just coming forward, all the lawsuits and everything. But it's always a cause and effect. It was something bigger that produced. It's widespread. That's why I had national news and went to mainstream media and everything. So from mainstream media to social media, now we see why it went that direction. But as knew it was something. But this is basically off. What was the cause of it? And anytime you mess with the elite, deal with them, this is what they do. So this is something that it was heavier, and now everything is starting to balloon. And that situation, and they probably held up that footage of him abusing that young woman until all this surfaced. It was probably right about that same time what that guy was saying. Now they released the video. Now it's all over, and everything just started coming forward. Then people probably been saying it, but they were just kind of brushing it up under the rug. Now more and more, but these entities was protecting him. But when he went against the entities, that's they brought him down. Just like they do in politics, same thing. When you don't do what they do, that's what they do. And so this was actual truth coming out. So it's probably more and more stuff on P. Diddy, Sean Puffy Combs. So my goodness, because it went for a whole 2 or 3 weeks, and I kind of stayed away because it was dying down, and until you get it, until you figure out why all of a sudden it blew up like this. It was, now you see who really was behind it. Now you see what companies was behind it. $1 billion company, you go against $1 billion company, yeah, and then they make you the face of it for their brand, and you don't do it. It's a dirty, it's a doggy dog world. But it doesn't excuse the things that he anticipated with other people living that kind of lifestyle. But hey, to each his own. But he shouldn't kind of abuse his authority when it came to other people, sexually and otherwise. But anyway, yeah, that was. I thought I'd give. No one probably don't know about that version. They know about mainly what he was talking about, but they didn't probably know what kicked it off. And when everybody started coming for celebrities and everything, but it was something bigger behind the scene. There's always something bigger behind the scene when it comes to something like this that hit mainstream. When you see a celebrity go down, or they mysteriously have an accident that they're not alive no more. It's 9 chances out of 10. When you sign a deal in blood, this is what you don't take the oath. You see what happened, and you can go into a world where he sold his soul a long time ago. So he's reaping what he sowed, and he means he hurt a lot of people too, reaping what he sowed. But they think that you're on top for 1 minute, but you don't remain top on dog for long. So let this be a lesson. You don't want to be famous, that well famous, because when you do, you have everything will come after you, and you have to be strong in your spirit to resist the temptation. And there's people's testimony that can back that up to show they had the talent, but they wanted to offer a deal, they turned it down. They say you'll never work in this town again. Now you see who works for Satan, the devil, when it comes to Hollywood. All right then, ladies and gentlemen, hope this been an interesting video on Sean Puffy Diddy Combs, and you can continue to research what that first video said. Like and subscribe. See you on the next video. And, hey, if you ever get famous, fame ain't all what it cracked up to be. If it means I'd rather have my soul have peace than sell it to the world. Take care, be blessed. See you on the next video.